massive end of the year for games. Path of Exile 2 has ended early access. Grinding Gear Games, after a decade, just a little over a decade, have released a sequel to Path of Exile. And they called it Path of Exile 2.
Classic.
Lazy bastards.
Should call it another Path of Exile.
Ooh. Paths of Exiles. Paths of Exiles. This is an action RPG in the style of Diablo, but it is in the style of Path of Exile, because that game's been around for 10 years. This is a Kiwi dev team. It was really exciting when they hit the market in 2013 to deliver a competitor to Diablo. At the time, Diablo 3, and where Diablo 3 didn't quite meet the expectations of the ARPG fan at the time when it first launched. Not to say that it was unsuccessful, it was a successful and very fun game. Path of Exile was a little more hardcore and tried to kind of lean into Diablo 2's design sensibility. Path of Exile 2 is still in that vein of trying to be a more classic ARPG, and I have spent maybe about 6 hours in it, maybe a little more. I've finished the first act. At the moment, the first 3 acts of the story have been released. They don't want everyone to play through the entirety of the story while it's still in early access, but this, to me, has been more exciting to play than Diablo 4. And I have really enjoyed playing Diablo 4.
Huge.
And I've jumped into Diablo 4 when it, quote-unquote, got good after a year, and I love playing that. This game feels a little bit more difficult. It is slower. It is heavier. And it, in some instances, feels like a Souls-like from an isometric perspective.
Ooh.
There are many, many bosses. I think there's something like 100 and something bosses compared to Diablo's like 10. And they are all interesting. There are bosses out in open areas that you can engage with if you're going through, it's basically a procedural version of a hub map that you jump into, so it kind of shifts where things are located, but it's effectively the same size and has the same components in it every time, which is familiar to ARPG players. So they get a little bit of like, oh, I don't know where the exit is, but I know what's in this map, and I know what I'm looking for in this map. And then it has campaign bosses, and there's an act boss as well. And the act boss for Act 1 is a delight. It kicked my ass so many times, and has some great AoE and lots of mob stuff and like ads, and it's just like, it's a really engaging thing to jump into. I am playing a melee character. I'm playing the warrior. And the skill tree is daunting as hell when you first go onto it, as they often are in ARPGs. You click on this thing and suddenly there's this.
This one's particularly, I think, I have. It's
like a constellation of.
I remember
fear.
Path of Exile 1 had this similar thing where people are like,
Path of Exile 1 was way smaller than this. Is this a huge, daunting expansion from Path of Exile?
That's the game.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's look. I mean, it becomes less intimidating as when you start spending points and you're like, oh, I see what I'm doing and I'm building this direction. I don't need to actually worry about 80% of what's going on here.
I would buy a skill on that tree that is, I would like a smaller skill tree, please.
For dummies now.
So you don't grow the tree, you extend a branch, basically.
You follow through a branch of it.
Yeah, gotcha.
And all the classes are built in the same constellation, so you can. There's some interesting class build stuff.
Yeah, right.
And there's like the joy of loot drops. One of the things about Path of Exile that differs from modern Diablo is there's still a strong reliance on crafting towards your build. You can't just like wait for the next orange like legendary drop to go like,
but
oh well, now I'm
crafting out of lots of mats that you're
getting mats as you play,
Okay,
and you're really like min maxing.
Yep. Okay.
I mean, it's min maxing with random elements as well. It's like, oh, this good thing dropped. I'm going to now focus this direction based on this cool item.
But it's not solely, I'm just going to sit here and just keep grinding until
I get gear until I get the gear.
Great.
Which is cool. I have been playing with friends, which always makes these things more enjoyable. And people, you can obviously play this game by yourself. I believe we know the person has the world's first clear of all of the campaign content that's currently out, which is Tim Roots, who is
one of. I don't.
Wow.
One of. I think it was a team. I think
He was playing with a team?
He was part of a team.
Yeah, amazing.
Wow.
He's fucking crazy.
Yeah, so people, played for 72 hours straight to just like get there. Yeah, it's really cool. I really like where it's at from an early access perspective. I've heard some complaints from Path of Exile veterans, which I am not. I played when Path of Exile first came out, and then haven't played for 9.5 years. But that it's maybe not playing exactly the same way that Path of Exile plays, but I go, well, cool. You get a different experience.
Yeah.
Why would you want the same experience? And they've done a lot of good things for their community. They're porting all of, I think, if not all, then as many as possible of the microtransactions, the cosmetics they've sold from the last game are being ported across to this game.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
So that you just
that's
get them.
Great.
You can continue to use those if you jump across to the new game.
That's a good way to get people to continue to keep buying them in the new one. Like, that's
Yeah.
such a good show of will to be like, yeah,
yeah.
keep buying in the new store.
yeah. And there'll be more exciting things to buy in the future. The other thing is, like, people play ARPGs and they get to endgame and they grind the endgame content. I haven't played any of the endgame content. I don't know how good that is yet, but I also have, because this campaign is quite challenging, I've heard complaints that, I just want to get through the campaign and get to the endgame grind. And it's like,
That's
try and just enjoy the content that's here for the moment.
Yeah.
It's been out in early access for
there are different types
a
of
week.
players, your Destinies and your Diablos, and you guys who occasionally are like, I'm here for that grueling, gauntlet right at the end, not the what I need to go through to get to that.
And to be fair, it's an important part of this kind of game is the loot grind and the experience grind and all of that, and just building seasonally, building new characters and re-rolling. But I personally enjoy. I don't think Diablo's story is that engaging. I think it is reasonably effectively told, and their cutscenes are always best in the business, but pretty forgettable for the most part. Whereas I can't say too much differently about this so far, but the campaign itself is more interesting because I'm remembering encounters.
Yeah, cool.
And I'm remembering world encounters as well. So it's been a lot of fun for me.